Today we've got a full in-depth comparison for you of the classic Tamron 28-75 f2.8 that we all know and love, and the version 2 basically. This is a new and improved version of this lens that pretty much nobody asked for, but here it is. And I have to say, I really didn't know what to think to start with, but now I'm pretty happy that it's here. So as usual, we're gonna break these things down, show you the differences, and answer whether or not this thing's worth the extra money for you. We're gonna break them down in terms of size, build, performance, and value to help you figure out which of these two lenses is gonna be the best one for you to go with. So a few initial thoughts right out of the gate between these two. The new G2 version has been pretty much improved upon in every conceivable way. It is a very much welcomed lens once you see what they've done here, and they're really looking towards the future on this guy. I have to say, it's not quite the look and the feel of the typical Tamron line that we're used to. It's kind of been revamped. It's a bit more tactile feeling, a little bit different, I would say. It's no better or worse for me. It's a little bit different. It's growing on me, and I like the feel of the zoom and the focus rings a little bit more. It's really what Tamron's done above and beyond just throwing the physical aspects of this lens into the new version. So I can't wait to get into it here, guys. If you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name is Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news, reviews, and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this type of content and you like this video and it helps you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways, let's jump into the first category, which is size. So one of the biggest things the original Tamron had over the comparable 24-70 Sigma was its size and its weight. So what about the new G2 version? This lens is a great size, measuring 5 3/4 inches long, not extended, and without the lens hood, it's only 4 1/8 inches long. If you do extend it, of course it does extend as you zoom, and you're looking at only 6.5 inches, a 1/4 inch less than the original. There's also only a 10-gram difference between the two in terms of weight, so it's really hard to tell the difference. But for me, the newer version feels lighter and is definitely better balanced. Overall, in terms of size, there's definitely no deal breakers here. They're basically the same lens, and they both get a check. Now, when we dive into build, we do start to see quite a big difference here. Now, the original Tamron had no buttons or switches, and the zoom and focus rings were a bit recessed. The G2 has an upgraded feel as well as a more pronounced zoom and focus ring. Also in this version, Tamron's added a focus set button, which traditionally would be known as a focus hold button, but it's much more than that. And using Tamron's new lens utility software, you can make this lens do a ton of amazing things, from changing it to an automatic manual focus button, picking an A to B point of focus, changing your focus ring to an aperture ring, changing your focus ring direction, and several other features that really let you take the customization of a lens to a level that we've never seen before. Now, to connect it to the software as well as your computer, there is an exposed USB Type-C port right in the middle of the lens. And this is a little bit curious for me and does concern me a little bit in terms of weather sealing, but Tamron has assured us that this is moisture resistant and not going to be an issue. I am a tiny bit skeptical about this, but I guess time will tell. Both lenses also share 67mm filter threads, as well as Tamron's patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare, and both lenses also have a metal mount with a rubber gasket to help with weather sealing. Now, the optical construction is a bit different between these two as well, the original having 15 elements in 12 groups, and the G2 having 17 elements in 15 groups, which does contribute to its better image quality, as you'll see here shortly in performance. Overall, for the build of these two, the G2 is a superior lens and an exciting look at what's to come for the future of Tamron lenses. Now let's have a look at some of the performance differences between these two lenses, starting with the autofocus here in video. Now, the newer lens, the G2, does have Tamron's faster and newer VXD focusing motors, which are superior in basically every way over the original. They're going to be faster, more accurate, and perform better in low light. It's newer technology, and it's not surprising that they're better. Having said that, they are both going to perform fantastically in great light. And here's a look at how these two fare in terms of photography autofocus here on the A7 III, and the original here is decent. Now, it's not perfect, but you will get away with great performance in great light, like most lenses, and of course your camera's autofocus will be a big determining factor, but overall a good performance, and when it does miss, it really doesn't miss by much. And here's the G2 in action, same settings, same camera, same everything, and as you can see, it is quite a bit more reliable. It's got the faster focusing motors, which really do make a big difference, especially for consistency. Out of 31 shots here, it was just one that missed just slightly, so overall a great performance in terms of still autofocus. When it comes to manual focus, for me, the G2 definitely has the clear advantage. Using Tamron software, you do have more flexibility, and in terms of focus breathing, that's also been improved, not by much though. Next, let's have a look at the bokeh of these two lenses. Now they both are very similar, they both have 9 aperture blades, but for me, the new G2 is just slightly improved. Now there were a few people who didn't care for the quality of the original. I never found it that bad, and it all comes down to personal preference, but I definitely see an improvement here with the G2. It just transitions better, it's just got a bit more flow, but I think we're splitting hairs here. They're both F2.8, and they both look pretty darn decent for me. I also wanted to touch on the impressive minimum focus distance that's been further improved on version 2 down to 0.18 meters or just about 7 inches. You can get very close to your subject here, especially at 28 millimeters. Our maximum magnification ratio is going to be 1 to 2.7 on the wide side and 1 to 4.1 on the telephoto side of things. So you definitely can get up close and personal, so close that you got to worry about shadows in some cases. And here's a real world look at the difference in magnification, and although it's small, it does make a dramatic difference at these distances, as you can see. We're not quite in macro territory, but you can get quite close nonetheless. As far as minimum focus distance image quality, they're both razor sharp in the center, but do fall off quite quickly, having some softness in the corners, especially wide open. Here are some photo examples that I've taken with both of these lenses just to show you what they're capable of, as well as to actually just test you and to see if you think the difference is all that apparent, and of course if it's worth the upgrade for you in terms of the optics and what you get out of it. Now we will take a closer and a much more detailed look at the sharpness and optics coming up here next, but let me know if you can really tell the difference between these two lenses and what you most notice. So here is our sharpness and optics comparison between the trusty old Tamron 28-75 f2.8 here on the left and the newer G2 on the right here. Very similar with a few cosmetic differences, but optically pretty close. Let's dive in and have a closer look. You might notice here that there's a bit of a fall off when it comes to light here on the right, and that's just because my test light is just positioned to the left a tiny bit, but it is the same exact positioning for both lenses on the same tripod. So let's have a look here wide open at f2.8 here at 28 millimeters for both of these lenses. And again, the original on the left here, the newer one on the right. And you'll notice definitely some contrast difference, a bit better contrast on the right here. And as far as sharpness is concerned, you'd really have to get out the microscope to see a difference here in the center. I really struggle to find a difference. Depending on where you're looking, it's a few percent at best, give or take. So they're both really nicely sharp in the center wide open. And let's have a look at the corners. Okay, here in the corners wide open, there is definitely some vignetting that you can notice, and that is because the profile correction is turned off for one, and there is a little bit of vignetting in both of these lenses wide open. Now, as far as the sharpness is concerned, you can see here in the original, it does a decent job, but does start to fall off quite a bit early, where the newer one is considerably sharper as it goes on into the corner here. You can see that here specifically. And then in the corner here, you'll notice a bit more chromatic aberration here on the corners, where the newer one is a bit more crispier, a little bit cleaner. So in terms of wide open sharpness at 28 millimeters, the new G2 is definitely going to take it. Stopping down here to f4, you can see an improvement in both cases and a pretty darn decent performance here from the G2, even better. And yeah, it's nothing to shake a stick at here with the original, but it's just that much better with the newer lens, and that's not really surprising. But definitely the better contrast, you can see it even in the way far extreme corners here of the image. It's just that much more crispy. And here we are at f8, and as you can see, it's a fantastic performance out of the G2 here, and a decent performance out of the original Tamron. Of course, we are splitting hairs here if you really look at the big picture. They're both fantastic lenses, but it's just that much better in the newer and more improved G2. Here we are at f/16, and as you can see, the G2 is still holding up really nicely, a tiny bit of softness creeping into the original, and again, nothing too bad out of both of these lenses, but just that much more impressive on the bit smaller and lighter G2. Now let's have a look zoomed all the way in here to 75mm, and you can definitely tell the difference in contrast and color on the newer G2, definitely crispier and more vibrant. Let's have a look at the sharpness in the center of both of these guys though. This is wide open at f2.8, and as far as sharpness is concerned, maybe just a hair going to the G2 here in the center. And again, let's have a look at the corners. As you can see here up in the corners, a great performance out of the newer G2, where the original Tamron does struggle a little bit wide open. Let's stop down and see if we can see a difference. Here at f4 we see an improvement from both lenses, and let's see what happens at f5.6. f5.6 looking even better, fantastic out of the G2. And here at f8, a stunning performance out of the newer Tamron, where the older one is decent. It's the same story here at f11, and still good here at f16 on the newer Tamron, but the older one does start to fall apart a little bit in terms of quality. Overall for sharpness, it's a win for the newer Tamron, which isn't surprising, and as you can see, a clear winner when it comes to contrast and color as well. In terms of distortion, both of these lenses are about the same, with a bit of pincushion distortion across the board and a little bit of vignetting wide open, but they both clear up pretty decently as you stop down. Now, neither of these have a profile correction turned on because the one is not yet available for the G2, so just to keep it fair, this is what they both look like without profile correction turned on. But to give you an idea about what it might look like, it's going to be something like this here on the right. Obviously a lot cleaner and a lot straighter with that profile correction, that one click in Lightroom. Overall, in terms of sharpness, I'm really impressed with the G2's performance, especially considering that it's lighter and smaller than its predecessor. Great job, Tamron, as usual. So in terms of performance, as you would expect, the G2 is a solid upgrade when it comes to the performance of pretty much everything, and because of that gets the win in this department. Having said that, the original is no slouch and has served me well for years. So in terms of value here, this is really a no-brainer. The newer G2 is $899 US, and that's the MSRP, just $20 more than the original, and it looks like they're phasing the original out. So absolutely, it's well worth it at that price, but it will vary depending on the country that you're in. Of course, there are other options now, more and more coming out all the time, but it really begs the question, with all this great glass, do you really need to shell out for that crazy expensive G Master glass? Not to mention the killer warranty. Anyways, between these two lenses, the original and the G2, well, for value, of course, the G2 is also going to take it. So wrapping it all up, guys, I think the G2 is a phenomenal upgrade over the original, with lots of great features and performance increases. If you can find the original on sale or at a considerable discount, it's still a killer lens, but if you want the best of the best with lots of customization and a really nice performance boost, well, consider going with the new G2. It definitely won't let you down. If you want to pick either of these lenses up, guys, I will drop affiliate links down below. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you out, and if it did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. Like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you in the next one.